I am a CPA. I am from Pennsylvania, right around the Philadelphia area. And yeah, my job is probably not exciting to most of you. But I did go to Penn State University. I graduated in 1992. I stand on very tall shoulders. There's a few people in this room that I have learned tremendous amounts of information from. One of those men is not here, is Tom Schauf. He's a CPA out of Arizona. He's got a couple books that he puts out on the internet that he produces on his own. You won't find him in the bookstore. And there's a real reason why you won't find him in the bookstore. I spent 4 years in public accounting, auditing nonprofit institutions, auditing manufacturers, service companies, preparing financial statements, all that kind of good stuff that most of you don't want to have anything to do with. I spent 4 of my 10 years out in my career in the real estate industry, in a real estate management company that handles apartments and homes that people want to rent out. The last 2 years I've been out on my own, helping people with IRS matters. Primarily that's what I do. I help people with IRS matters, and I help people with banking issues, credit card problems, and mortgages and the like, doing some estate planning and things like that. I brought my license. So if anybody wants to verify who I am, you can come up and you take a look at this at the end, or I'll put it out on the table or whatever. It has my license number. You can call the Secretary of State of Pennsylvania. You can verify that I am who I say I am. I'm a member in good standing of 2 of the societies up in Pennsylvania. I believe in Scripture cover to cover. I have a Creator that made all of this, and that's who I have to answer to. So whether you believe me or not, I don't really care. I'm not here to convince you. I'm not here to sell you. I'm going to deal with banking, and that's all I'm going to talk about, banking and credit cards and debt and money, basically money today. Okay. What's money? Means of exchange. Everybody understand what that is? Something for something. Quid pro quo. Nice Latin. Okay. What else is money? What is money? Security. Okay. We've got security. And I'll assume by that you mean having it. Okay. Is this money? Federal Reserve. You can buy these. They cost more than the $2 that are here, the value of the $2 that are here. But is it money? Can you go spend this? How many people are going to take this from you, do you think? This, like this. You get a bill for 36 bucks. Here you go. How many people are going to take that from you? But you're right, it's money. Nonetheless, it's money. How about these? Here's an old $1. Let's see, does this one actually say? This is old from 1923. This certifies that there has been deposited in the Treasury of the United States of America. $1. That's what it used to look like. This one doesn't actually say it in 1923. This one actually does not say that there's something sitting in a vault in Fort Knox. That's another one. No, these are all Federal Reserves. How many people know the Federal Reserve isn't federal? Right, raise of hands. Okay. Is that a shock to the folks that didn't raise your hands? Who do you think it's owned by? Who did you think it's owned by? Because I'm going to change that if you thought it was federal. I'm going to pick. Who do you think? Did you think it was the government that owned it?
Well, the word federal, yeah.
Okay. Is Federal Express federal? Okay. The English language is you can become an artist in the English language. Federal doesn't mean it's federal. I have a gentleman that's a client of mine. He has federal home inspections. Sounds great. I saw his truck. I thought, ooh, that guy works for the government. I'm out of here. Federal Reserve is owned by private banks. Some European, some Japanese, mostly American. But it's not federal. So when you see these are owned by who? They're Federal Reserve notes. Take a look at your wallet. Take a look at what I just handed out. This is, I have more. It says Federal Reserve note. That's what this is. This is a private bank. Private bank issued the money that you carry around in your pocket every day. The credits that you get in your account if you have direct deposit. It's owned. The actual credit is a Federal Reserve credit. Okay? So We're here to learn about debt and how to get out of it, how to control it, how to use it. I can't teach you how to control your spending. I cannot give you legal advice. I am not an attorney. Anything I say here is just for your use, however you see fit. Spending money can be very easy. I've done it very well. But what is money? How do you control it? How do you use it? The best answer and the most generic answer is this. It's a medium of exchange. But that is so vague that most people don't think about it. They don't understand what that means. What is a medium of exchange? Two people have had to have come together to agree what that exchange is going to be, what that medium is going to be. You know, we go through books like this from the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, Modern Money Mechanics, and they'll tell you that at the beginning even people used to trade seashells. You'd go to the seashore, you'd go pick them up, and you come back and you'd exchange what you needed, what they used in World War II. My dad participated in that fine event. Cigarettes. That was a hot commodity. American cigarettes. They use them in prison today. Cigarettes are something that they're worth their weight in gold and more. So anything that you and I agree is going to be the medium of exchange is money, by definition. So if you and I agree to exchange Federal Reserve notes, that's money. If we agree to exchange gold and silver, this is a 1-ounce silver piece created by a company out of Evansville, Indiana. The company's name is Norfed. I'm their CPA. This is 1-ounce silver piece. You can buy them. They're in competition with the Fed. They've got over 1 million distributors in this country right now. So you can get silver for your money today. And you can use it. Not necessarily at every store, but some stores will accept it. But anyway, that medium of exchange, this is what you're all fighting against. Those of you who have credit card problems, those of you who have high debt ratios. Most of this kind of talk is boring. I get bored by it. But what I do get excited about is explaining to you what you think is debt isn't debt. And I already had an interest in banking. This book, this is one of the books by Tom Shaw. I highly recommend that everyone in this room buy this book. S-C-H-A-U-F. That's his last name. Bankfreedom.com. Before I read this book. This is a book by a man named G. Edward Griffin. It's called The Creature from Jekyll Island. This will give you a history of the Federal Reserve. If you haven't read it, I couldn't put it down. But then again, I'm in finance and this kind of stuff. I get excited by that. So I already had an interest in learning about what it was happening to me and my family. I've got 3 small children, but I want them to be secure when they're my age. Social Security is not going to be there for them. Could be. I doubt it. They need to understand money. I was not taught money. How many people were taught money by their parents? How many were taught in school? At least how to balance a checkbook. High school? I'm getting a lot of no's. I'm getting a lot of, well, I don't know if I want to answer. So what I'm going to tell you is verifiable in the law and I've got another CPA sitting back here. There are 5 basic areas in a financial statement. First of all, let me ask, who knows what a financial statement is? Show of hands. Okay. You all have one. It's called your checkbook or your bank statements. There is a left side, which is all the stuff you own, and there's a right side, everything that you owe. And then there's the stuff that you make and the stuff that you spend, and this is what's left over. Who knows the name Enron? Everybody. What happened? What did they talk about? They said funny accounting. We all heard this over the last couple months. Funny accounting, tricks, maneuvering, paper entries, all this kind of stuff. They're telling you the truth. Do you know who's under investigation now because of Enron? Banks. Now under investigation. Why? Funny accounting. Plain and simple. Accountants can do miraculous things on paper. They really can. Enron fell apart primarily due to accounting entries and the misconception about what people thought they were getting into. Who's ever looked at a financial statement to do investing? A couple people. I would hope that folks with the licenses have done it. How many of you have 401ks or IRAs? And you've never looked to see what you're investing in? To make sure the company's stable? How many have looked at their banks? Financial statements to see if the bank is solvent? And would you know it? Here's one. Sovereign bank. This complies with something known as generally accepted accounting principles, GAAP. There's a few people, including the attorney here, who would know you just can't print anything. They do comply with the law. And that's why this is exciting to me. Okay. So, question. Is debt money? Yes. Debt is money. Why is debt money? It can be sold. It can be exchanged. Is debt money? The answer is definitely yes. Okay. 3 questions I want you to think about right now. Where do banks get their money to loan? Not looking for an answer at the moment. Where do they get their money to loan? Where do the credit card companies get their money to loan? I'm asking this question because when I got up this morning, I turned on the TV in the hotel, and there was an infomercial on. And it's one of these companies that is out there, we can consolidate your credit card debts. We can give you one payment, and we're going to solve all your worries in 5 years. And I got a guy shaking his head no. Well, I laughed at it. I thought it was a hoot. Why does what they do work? The question, how can credit card companies work out negotiations with anybody or any repair organization and stay in business? Well, I'm not looking for an answer. Think about that. This one is the one that blew me away. Since 9/11, how many of you have heard a car dealer, we can give you a 0% loan over 3, 4, 5 years on your car? How? Who in this room can take their paycheck and give it to somebody else? Oh, no interest, pay me back in 5 years. And do that every week. 90% of Americans, was it 90? No, most Americans are 90 days away from bankruptcy. That's a true statement. Who can go 3 months without making any money in this room? I can't. Not yet. But think about that. How can they do that? It's actually not that hard to figure out if you're looking in the right places. What is the legislation that allows banks to do what they do today? Do you know what it is? You may not have studied this. What's your area of expertise in law? Okay, so this may not be up your arena, but what's your guess? Yeah, there's 2 major pieces of legislation in the last 150 years. Well, Congress passed it, you're right. Oh, put your hand down. You got cheaters next to you. What piece of legislation allows banks to do what they do today? Ah, there's the second one. That's the second one. It's right here. Of 1913. Most of us have heard of it. This is what put the Federal Reserve into existence. Congress authorized it in 1913. Here's the one that most people forget about. National Currency Act of 1864. This is important stuff to understand what I'm going to show you. In 1864, Congress, under Lincoln, authorized banks to do one thing. Well, several things, but one important thing. One very important thing. They could take your promissory note. This is one I just printed out on my computer. It's an official legal document if I wanted to sign it. put your names on it. I could owe you $100,000 if you'd take it. But it's a promissory note. It allowed the banks to take your promissory note and go, we've opened up an account for you. And it allowed them to create money out of your debt. In 1913, the act was appended with the Federal Reserve Act, and it centralized it. It took all the banks out here and said, okay, we're going to bring you all under one umbrella, and we're going to make it into the Federal Reserve System. So that most banks today belong to either the Federal Reserve or the FDIC. And what that means for you, basically, is that they have certain rules they have to follow, certain procedures they have to go through. When people ask me what I do for a living, I correct records. All of you have records. Most of you don't know it. So these two pieces of legislation allowed it to occur. What we're sitting in today, what you're sitting in. We all know that the national debt is rising, keeps going up, right? Why does it keep going up? We keep spending more money than we're making, right? The government spends more than it makes. At least that's what they tell you, right? If the Federal Reserve gets to print the money, which they do, the government goes and says, we need X amount of dollars. We need $1 billion. What did Bush just put in circulation? 300 billion? Yes, 300 billion brand new dollars just went into circulation for education. Where did he get it from? They took out bonds, gave them over to the Fed. Fed printed up $300 billion. Out the door it goes. Okay, so if they created principal of 300 goes from, if I want to create $300 billion and I say to you, let me create it with you. You do it for me and then give it back to me. But now I got to pay them interest. That's what happens. Me as the government, I go to my banker and I say, Mr. Banker, I need 300 billion new dollars. I ask him to create it. He does. He gives it back to me as a loan. And now I got to pay that 300 billion plus interest. How am I going to do that? I can't. Because we didn't print up enough money in order for me to pay back the interest. So I got to go back to him and say, well, you know what? Oh, I forgot. Sorry. I need another 100 million to pay your interest this year. Now I'm 3,100 million in debt. But I at least paid the interest off on the 300 billion for at least 1 year. Sounds crazy. It sounds stupid. Who in this room would like me to create money for you and lend it back to you, and then you have to pay me the interest yet? But I didn't give enough money for that yet. You got to borrow more for me to do it. Any takers? Real quick, accounting 101. You have the left side, your left, and you have the right side. I'm going to mess this up because I'm backwards. On your left side, you have your assets. Your checks, not your checks, but your cash accounts, your home, your car, your stuff. On your right side, you own the mortgage, you own the car loan, you own the credit card, you owe your neighbor, whoever it is. You owe it over here. The difference between the two is what you call your equity. We've all probably, who's got a mortgage? 85% of the room raise their hands. Okay. You have the price of your house, you have what you paid off, the difference is the equity in your home, and you got all sorts of organizations out there, oh, we'll loan you 150% on your equity. Okay. Sounds crazy. I'd do it in a heartbeat. But that's the difference between what you have and what you owe. For a company, there's two more things. They have their assets, they have their liabilities, they have their equity. And it's not just for companies, but companies have to show this for the public in the form of these financial statements. Banks have to publish these. Not generally for the public, but out to the Federal Reserve. If they're traded on the stock exchange, yes, you can get them. This bank happens to be traded on a stock exchange. They have two other categories called income and expense. Just from the term, we know what it is. Income is money coming in, expenses is money going out. The difference between these two also goes into this little middle one. Okay? So we have to balance out what comes in with what goes out with what we own with what we owe. All that combined is what's left over is equity. We either don't have any and we seem to owe more than we have, or we do have some. Most Americans don't have any. They owe more than they own. Okay, so I'm going to need some volunteers. I'm going to put you up here. These are the people out there working for a living. These guys all want homes. This guy is our builder. He's the guy building and selling the home. This guy's our financier. So we have our three hard-working people for a living. They earn their money. They each have their money. They each got $2. So in our economy, we have $6. You can pretend it's $6 trillion. You can pretend it's $6 million, whatever. We're going to have $6. They all want to be able to buy goods and services, so what do? They go to their banker, go to your banker, boo, and they deposit the money. Okay. These guys all took their money and gave it to the banker so that they can do what? Write checks, use their debit cards, and have an easy way of moving their money around. Okay. Back to here. How does that look in his checkbook or in his financial statement? What does the bank's books look like now? Okay. It's looking great. Okay. He just got $6, right? One other principle that we need to understand. It's called double entry accounting or the matching principle. What happens in one period, there's always two sides of it. There's always a left and a right side, and we want to match them together. So if my banker got $6, I'm really not down on bankers as people. So this isn't personal. That means he's got something else in one of 5 places that he can put it. Does he owe our 3 workers money? How much? $6. So does he have a liability totaling $6? Okay. That's what a bank's book's like when you deposit money. You give it to them, they owe it back to you. Sometimes it's with interest, sometimes it's without. Now here's an important thing. Important concept. Is there any bank that you can go to today that you cannot take your money out the very same day, or the next day, or even at 12 at night? Is there any bank or bank account that you know of that you can't get your money? Can I get my money out in a CD? That's the most typical. That's a good answer, but it's not necessarily right. But I pay a slight penalty, but I can get my money, can't I? So is there any account that I can't get my money? Now accounts, IRAs, 401s, whatever it is. Can I get my money? Okay. I can always get my money. Okay, we have our workers. We have our builder. And we have our banker. One of us, who wants a house? Okay, Steve wants a house. He was the first one, so he wants a house. So he goes to the builder. The builder says, I've got land. The builder says, I need money. Steve says, oh, I'm going to borrow it. How much does the house cost? $6. $6. Okay, the house costs $6. Okay. So what does Steve do? Goes to the bank, right? These are for you. Okay, what do they say? What is that first one?
Promissory note.
What's the second one?
Sample mortgage.
Okay, sample mortgage. Okay, so our banker says to Steve, please sign me a promissory note. But that's not the only thing I want, because I haven't collateralized this loan yet. I want to make sure that if you don't pay me, I'm going to get your house, right? Isn't that what they tell you? Okay, so now he wants a mortgage. Okay, great. So Steve signs these, right? He puts his signature, fixes his signature on this. He takes this and he gives it to his banker, and his banker gives him $6, right? Okay. Now Steve turns and gives the $6 to the builder. He's got the house. He got paid. This guy has paper, right? that represent that that Steve owes him money. How would that look for the bank after that's completed? How would that look? Okay? Okay? He hadn't paid him yet. Nothing's paid. At the settlement table, what happened? He got an asset, right? He got an asset worth $6, right? Then what happened? Why? Why would the liability go up? This is what you all think happens every day. Wouldn't that mean that the bank over here lost the $6? Right? The bank gave depositors money over to the guy who's going to borrow it so he could buy his house. Right? Right? Where does the bank get their money? He didn't borrow it from the Federal Reserve. But did I say anything yet that confuses you? When you came in here today, if I was to ask you, how does a bank loan out money? Well, they use depositors' money, right? Where else did they get it?
On the fractional reserve system.
Ooh, who's ever heard of fractional reserve banking? You're wrong. Fractional reserve banking. Basically what fractional reserve banking is, I'll go to my banker, I want this back. Okay? That's the silver piece. What he does, and it's described very nicely in this publication, again, Modern Money Mechanics from the Chicago Federal Reserve. Don't bother writing it down because you cannot get this anymore. They stopped printing it, and for good reason, and I'll show you why in a little bit. But in here, on page 3, it actually goes through the history, a real brief history, and you can see I've got some stuff highlighted, of what banks learned to do. He would take this, I would come and I would deposit this with my banker because I wanted it safe. He had the vault, I didn't. I was Farmer Brown, and I sold my crops, and I brought it to him, and he's got the big vault, and he could keep it safe. Well, what he would do is give me a receipt. And then these guys all wanted money, so he'd give them all receipts on the same deposit. That's fractional reserve banking. Because he knew that at any given time, not all of us were going to come try to take it. So he played the old, where's the ball, under the thing. And he'd just keep moving around, and hopefully you all wouldn't come in for your money. What happened in, what was the year? 29. What happened? They had a run on the banks. The banks shut down. Everybody wanted their money. He didn't have enough money to give you all. Or so they told you. Ooh. Okay. But this is what you think happens, or did, or thought, or guessed. And this is what it would look like if what we just ran through said, could they go get their money? No. He still owes it, right? He's got it. Nothing wrong with our builder. He worked for a living, he built the house, he got paid. Nothing wrong with Steve. He went to the bank because the bank said he could loan him money. Great. So what did the banker do? What did he really do? Why is this important? This is the biggest scam on the face of the planet. What is this? We have the definition of legal tender over here, or not the definition, but the words come out, legal tender, a promise to pay. On it, it says Federal Reserve note. What's a note? Promissory note. Now I'm going to blow your minds. And the lawyer in the room is going to love this one. Pennsylvania law. You can find this in the federal, I don't know if it's considered federal UCC, Uniform Commercial Code. You can find it. This one's from Pennsylvania, Title 13 in Pennsylvania, Chapter 91, Section 102, or 9102. It's a definition. This in here will give you the definition of a promissory note. Now, before I read that, what is that? Application for credit. for a credit card. What is this? Okay, it's online. Once signed, it becomes a promissory note. Do you not accept from the credit card company, or do you not give the credit card company a promise to pay when you use their card? Right? It's a promissory note. Okay? We have one promissory note. We have the banker's promissory note. We have the Federal Reserve's promissory note. This is the one I know some people love a lot. This is the Wagner This is the Wagner Reserve note for $100,000. Anybody want it? What? What? What's the difference? Yes, as legal tender. That is the only difference. Is this not printed on paper? Right? Printed on paper? Printed on paper? Printed on paper? It's all paper, right? It's got ink on it. It says it owes $2 in here. This one's $100,000. This one we don't know yet because we haven't finished it. Okay? So we have a bunch of promissory notes. Promissory note. An instrument. What's an instrument? Stocks. This. The promissory notes. The silver piece. Instruments. Instrument is nothing, we can play them. Financial instrument is nothing more than something that we can buy and sell across the open market. On the stock exchange if you want. Or in private. Okay? Which evidence is a promise to pay a monetary obligation. Does this do that? Sure it does. It's a note that says they're going to pay you $2. You bet it does. Federal Reserve note, $2. And it's signed. Okay? They used to say silver certificates, which you could redeem for silver. Okay? But it's still a promise of $2. Does not evidence an order to pay. Uh-oh. I can't compel you to pay me, can I? Because it's not an order to pay. Like a check. Check isn't pay to the order of. I give you a check, you take it to the bank. It's an order by me to pay you. And that's what the bank provides, that service. That's great. You use your credit card. You swipe that credit card, you're issuing an order to pay. Your bank to the seller of the goods and services. Okay. Does not, this is the one I really love, does not contain an acknowledgement. Do you see anything on here that says, front or back, by the bank, that, I'm not an English major, but I do know how to break down sentences. The bank has received for deposit a sum of money. It's right here. This is the law. This is your law. Same location, 9102. Go look on it on the internet. Your credit card application was what? A promissory note that the bank has received for a deposit a sum of money. It just didn't tell you. The bank didn't have to. Your representatives and your Congress people said, oh, we don't want the banks to have to tell you that that's what's going on. How can this be? One, the law says it. Two, plain math. How do they get their money back? Who in this room agreed to that? Who in this room, when they deposited their money with their bank, said, yes, Mr. Banker, give it to whoever you want, and I'm not going to come in and get it for X period of time? Who agreed to that? Who agreed to that banker being able to do that? No one. No one did. It's stupid. I mean, really. It's still your money. The bank gives you a statement. What's that statement? We owe you X amount of dollars. Well, the statement isn't an IOU. When you look at your credit card on and bring it, but I mean, when you have that credit card, this one is with Chase. When you have that credit card, don't they send you a statement and say, here's what you got, here's what you've used, here's what you owe us? Right? Isn't that what those do? Is it How much different is that than your bank statement? Except your bank statement doesn't say, you owe us this. It just says, here's what you have, here's what you spent, and here's what you've put in with us. Technically speaking, that's what a credit card statement tells you too. Here's what you have, here's what you spent, and here's what you've redeposited. How? Read that paragraph for us. This is the Federal Reserve out of Chicago. Do that again. If this is, again, the title on this is Bank Deposits, How They Expand or Contract. If business is active, the banks with excess reserves probably will have opportunities to loan the money. Of course, they do not really pay out loans from the money they receive as deposits. If they did this, no additional money would be created. How would we pay our interest on the loans if all we had was that $300 billion, or if all we had was the $6? How could we pay everything back if it was interest? How is he going to pay? We only have $6 in circulation over here. How does Steve pay his banker back the $6 plus the interest that he's going to owe if there's only $6 in the economy? Okay. What they do when they make loans is to accept promissory notes, hold that up, in exchange for credits to the borrower's transaction accounts. What's a credit to a borrower's transaction account? Quiet. It's a deposit. What's a deposit to a bank? Both. A deposit to a bank is an asset because they got the money, he got the money, but it's also a liability. Okay. So if, when they make loans and they accept the promissory note in exchange for the credit, which represents the $3 or the $6 that went back to Steve, normally you get it in the form of a check, right? You go get your house or mortgage, or your house or your car, or a line of credit. They give you a bunch of checks. You get a credit card, they just give you a piece of plastic. No different than a check, right? Okay. So what happened? Does this make sense? Did you all agree to this? Remember, is debt money? Here's another one so you don't think that that's a misprint. Points of interest, again, the Chicago Federal Reserve. Let's see, where did it go? Banks create, this is on page 7. Banks create deposits by making loans. What? Banks create deposits by making loans. Rather than handing cash to borrowers, banks simply increase balances in borrowers' checking accounts. Cool. Did I read that wrong? Oh, look, my favorite Federal Reserve Bank, Chicago. Two faces of debt. I didn't know it had two faces. Okay. In addition to issuing securities, the federal government, through the Federal Reserve System, issues non-interest-bearing debt currency or paper money. You got it? Okay. Currency is so widely accepted as a medium of exchange that most people do not think of it as debt. This is your bank telling you this. This is not me. Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas. Money, banking, and monetary policy. Banks actually create money when they lend it. Did you know when you took out your credit card, when you took out your mortgage, when you took out your car loan, that you helped the bank create money? Hold on to it for a second. Because I'm not done with the bank. Federal Reserve Bank of Boston. This one you still can get. Banking basics. Let's see, where do banks get the money to lend? They get it from people who open accounts. Credit card companies are banks. They are financial, well, let's put it this way. Credit card companies are financial institutions. Banks are financial institutions. They have rules and regulations by which they must adhere. One of them is GAAP, so let's take a look at it. Here's our banker on his... He's got a financial statement that has 5 basic places that transactions can go. When he has to record something on his books, and we all know that they have to, there are 5 places it can go. So let's look at the loan transaction between Steve, our worker, and our banker. We didn't get your name. We'll leave you anonymous. Okay. When the loan occurred, which we all said was this, what of these 5 were affected? Just assets, right? In the way that when we came into the room today, that's what we thought happened, but we realized that that seems a little foolish on our part as depositors, right? So what really does happen? We know that when I came in and I deposit money, that's what it looks like, right? Bank owes me money, all happens that way. So now, when I come get a loan, if 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I've got 6 and 7, these are all Federal Reserve publications, if those are right, and the law on promissory notes is right, and these are right, what had to have happened? Enron. They took your promissory note. I want the red because I think that'll stand out. They took your promissory note and he got money. He received an asset. It went over here. Why? Why is it also a liability to the bank when you sign that application? Let's do process of elimination. You've got 5 places it can go. When they did that loan on the bank's set of books, has the bank incurred an expense? Has he spent money yet on operating his bank? No. Has he received income yet? He's never been paid. Did Steve, when he took out the loan from the banker, did he become a partner with the banker? Did he get ownership in his bank? Okay, now we're left with 2. We're left with either assets or liabilities. Process of elimination. GAAP, that's a P. This is what Todd and I went to school for. This is not what they taught us when we got out or while we were in. I'm not going to address this one yet. Let's address assets. Now, we heard where banks get their money, but what would you have said if you hadn't heard that? You would have said other depositors, right? You would have said, well, maybe the bank has investments that it's using, or maybe it's their own capital. They're not allowed to lend you their capital. When a bank starts a bank, in Pennsylvania, you need $4 million. Pennsylvania law specifically says that you are not allowed as a banker to use that money to loan out. You can use it for operations, but you can't loan it out. Okay? Could it be, so they didn't use their equity to fund loans. Could it be investments? Well, sort of. But if he comes in, what's the banker have to do if he's got investments? He's got to turn around and sell them real quick to be able to fund that check that he just gave so he could pay our builder. Is that practical? No, it's certainly not practical. Is it possible? Theoretically, it's possible. But you look at when you look at a balance sheet of a bank, the amount of investments in this particular bank, where'd it go? Comes nowhere near enough to fund all of these loans. And I'll find it later. If you want to see it, we'll find it later. It's not investments. Could the bank borrow money from somewhere else to fund to you? Bank's not allowed to lend bank credit, which means bank liabilities. They're not allowed to lend it. Title 12 doesn't allow them. Okay, so guess what? They don't have any assets to lend. What's left? Liabilities. I'm an expert witness in court. I've done this several times. When you take out a loan, here's what really happens. Builder, we need our money back. Okay, that goes back to you too. We have our economy. We have $6 with 3 people. They want to deposit their money because they want to be able to write checks and use credit cards and debit cards and all the like. So our banker comes along, or they come to our banker and they say, okay, banker, here is our money. Now, Steve wants a house. His money's with the bank, but he doesn't want to use his money because he doesn't have enough. He's only got 2. He's charging 6. So he goes to his banker and he says, okay, Mr. Banker, I'll sign this promissory note. And I'll give you these in exchange for a check. Okay, now he has a check. Okay? All paper exchanges. So far, it's even. He's given him paper, and he's given him paper. Now, he wants to buy the house. He gets the house, he exchanges the paper. But he doesn't want the paper. He's got to go buy goods. He's got to go feed his family. So he takes a check, and he goes to his banker. I'm the Federal Reserve. Now, he needs to cash that check. So he can either come to me, or he can take those and give it over to him. One of these people wants their money back. What's he do? Oh, he's got this paper. Hi, I'm the Fed. I'll exchange those. Oh, wait a minute. Ugh, let me pull these out of nowhere. All right. We got 3 more. I'll take these and I'll give you those. Now you've got your money to pay your people. Because now I'm the Fed. I'm going to go to Thailand. I'm going to go to Afghanistan. They're going to need money to rebuild after we bombed them to the Stone Age. I'll go to my friends at the International Monetary Fund. Here you go. Let's sell those. And we start exchanging this stuff on a global scale. That's what happens. How does it look over here? We know by process of elimination that these are the only 2 things. We know by the law and their own publications. The publications aren't law. I rely on the law for what I know. But by these publications, we know that the only thing they could affect is assets and liabilities of the bank. We know it. So, what happens now when we just put three new notes into circulation? We've eliminated the check because he's cashed the check. The notes are now out anywhere because we've put 3 new Federal Reserves into circulation. So now Steve withdraws his money because he's got to pay his interest. Right? So now he pays his interest. So Mr. Banker still has $4 in deposits, but now he's made at least 2. I'm a CPA. I should have known this. It took him showing me another CPA's book to say, duh. And I read 1 page out of a 200-page book, and I went, that's how it works. Because I had read this book. I had read this book, and it tells you how what the banks have done over history, how central banking works, how our money is not backed by anything. We all realize that. There's no gold and silver at Fort Knox to support our dollars. It's all what we perceive. The government's going to take care of it. This is how they do it. This book alludes to the reality and what really happens. I'm not interested in theory. I want to know how it really works. That's how my brain works. That's how I understand things. Okay, so I had read this 600-page book, and I read one page, and he showed me the accounting entries. Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, I love them. They tell you right here. Assets and liabilities. Okay, so the loan transaction. We've got a $6 loan which we have to repay. We're going to make two $4 payments to come to $8 so that the bank makes its $2. Okay? So we make our first $4 payment. $3 goes to the principal, $1 is income. We come back here, we make our next $3. And now this all cancels out, so we're left with the $6 in cash that we started with, right? And we've got our $2 in profit, right? The bank's made $2 so far. We missed a piece. If I loan you $6, and then I come back and I tell you, forget it, I don't really want it back. What's that to you? It's a gift. What's a gift? Receipts? Income? Didn't you just make $6? Because I said, we forgive the debt. You know what banks do if they forgive your debt? They send you a 1099. You're supposed to put on your income taxes, right? 1099-C. That's a whole other story. The bank hasn't gotten it off of its balance sheet yet. How does the bank get rid of its? How does any of us, if we owe money to somebody and they forgive it, it becomes income to us. So if you, as the borrower, don't know that you were the depositor, do you ever come back for your money? What do you think? No, you don't. You don't know. So guess what the bank gets to do? They have to move it and get rid of it and put it down in income. So on a $6 loan, they just made $8. Pretty nifty. What do you think Enron's been doing? They've been moving their money around. Part of their operations was financial operations. Who were they loaning money to? They knew how to place instruments into the marketplace. But when you go to repay your loan, when he goes to repay that, our banker makes lots of extra money. Because he started off with nothing, didn't he? In that world, he just made $8 from nothing. And here it is. Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago has told people since 1968. This has been in publication since 1961. So you've had the last 40 years to figure this out. The question was, I don't understand the $6 transaction, what all happened. He says, I don't understand what happened with this last $6, this part that was up here. Remember, we have, in the loan transaction, the loan is a deposit. Get it through your heads, that's what it is. I don't really care whether you believe it or not, because the bank says that's what they do. The banks have to comply with generally accepted accounting principles. It's the law. It's none of us. It's the Federal Reserve. It's Congress. You felt ripped off before? There is hope. There's a way to do it. I'll tell you that in a second. So what happened? You paid back the 6 plus 2, because our interest was 2 on this fake transaction. So the bank now has 8 from a receivable to actual paid cash. But they had to record something over here. They actually got rid of the 6 here to eliminate this side of it, but they got the cash, and they had 2 down here, right? That makes sense. Okay? They just converted some paper into the actual cash, so that's what's going on here. They take your loan, because you owe it to them. You give them the cash, the 6, plus the 2 in interest. So they now are sitting on $8 cash. 2 of it you think was income, or the perception is. Most accountants, by the way, most CPAs, don't think about this. Now, if they audit banks, that's a whole other ballgame. They are required to know this. I'd never audited a financial institution in my career. I'd love to now. But what's going on here is we've got the matching principle comes back and says, well, if I had this over here and I've got this over here, what's going on? Now our banker still owes somebody $6. He's got to pay it back. But guess what? He never does. Because you don't know it's your money. Did you know that when you did this credit card application that you deposited whatever value they gave you? Of course not. They didn't to me. I got all my deposit money out. I got every last dime. They're not taking anything from this cat. How do the accountants, how do the Enronists fix the books? Because otherwise you'd have balance sheets on the liability side going skyrocket. The thing would look insolvent. They got to move it. Where is the only places they can move it? It's not equity because you didn't buy into the bank. They can't move it to the other side of the balance sheet. So it's got to go to either expenses or income. Well, doing it this way and eliminating it, left and right. You have to have one on the left and one on the right. 8. When you're done paying your mortgage, you have paid on $150,000 because that's what mine was. When you amortize it and they tell you after all the 360 payments, I'm going to pay about $298,000 for a house that's not even worth it. That was $300,000 of pure profit for the bank. 100% profit. Now, my banker said, oh, well, we get our money from core deposits to loan out. Because I don't take this stuff lightly. I fight just about everything I can. Everything. And I have a lot of help. I don't know all this stuff. I can't even pretend to know all this stuff. I rely on a lot of knowledgeable people. There's several that I mentioned in this room in particular that have helped me tremendously. Okay. This is where I got mad because I realized what you just realized. And I said, I'm an accountant for crying out loud. I'm a CPA. I'm licensed. I should know this. What's the matter with me? Well, I just listened to my mom and dad. They're good people. They didn't know. Who listened to their mom and dad? Who listened to their mom and dad? Who listened to their mom and dad? This is the way it is all over the world. There's a country in this world that doesn't have a banking system like this. That's the way it works. Okay, so if that's the way it works, what do you do about it? Who'd you vote in office? Is that person telling you that you're getting screwed on a daily basis? Of course not. Your profession and mine are some of the worst. As a whole, not as individuals, but taken as a whole, we're scum. I don't like accountants, CPAs generally. You got a good man sitting back there, and Todd Swanson. Good man. I don't know about you. You might be, you might not be. I don't know you. I know of a couple of attorneys that we work with. Good, solid men. And they're fighting. They're fighting for people every day. The whole thing of this is you came to find out what can you do about it. My job today was just to teach you what they're doing to you. You take the information and do with what you want. Seek out good counsel. This guy over here might be good counsel for you. I don't know. Get representation. And if they don't understand it, I'll teach them. Tad will teach them. Tad's a fired up man. Get on the phone with these credit card companies, it's a blast. I live for that. I really do. I've taken my money right here. They owed it to me. I went and took it. How did I take it? I spent it. All I can tell you is what I did. I'm not advising you to do anything. Okay, go get informed. Figure this out. You can call me, I'll answer your question. Emailing me is the best way. But I went and I used it. We bought furniture, we bought groceries, we bought our stuff for our kids. That's what we did. Then I wrote and asked a series of questions. Everything you do in life with any agency or anyone, you always want to ask a series of questions. That's our favorite saying. Ask them a series of questions. What happened when I signed your application? What'd you do with it? Did we exchange it? Well, UCC says we did. I gave you a promissory note. I don't care if you called it an application, because you took my signature and my promise to pay, and by law deposited, and by law you didn't have to tell me. But I'm asking now. Because I want to know. In my particular case, after about 3.5 months, they sent it off to third-party debt collectors. They charged it off. What did it do on their financial statements? When they charged it off, because I defaulted, they got more money. They got income. Because I defaulted. You'll say, what? You live in a world that is upside down. And the looks that I get from some of you folks in here today are what I get on a regular basis. I'm still in practice. This license is brand spanking new. Pennsylvania just re-upped me. Another 2 years. I've been doing this for 3. They're almost every, I don't know if it's every congressperson at this point, but I'd venture to say 85% of them know who I am. They know my name. They don't know who I am, but they at least know my name. Because I don't want to be a public hero. I'm not looking to be, I'm not looking to be George Washington. I don't want to be. I represent my clients. And to do that, I get Congress involved. I get your representative involved, especially when it comes to the IRS. I want to put pressure where I can. When it comes to this stuff, who do you deal with? You deal with the banks. So when the third-party debt collector started calling me, Title 15 is your best friend. This Title 15 has the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. Who's heard of that? Okay. Go read 1692 at SEC. Beautiful piece of legislation. That's United States Code 15, Title 15. 15 U.S.C. 1692. Read it. Go out to Cornell Law and read it. It's not that big. But what it tells you is you don't ever have to pay a third-party debt collector. That's the bottom line. 15 U.S.C. 1692. Because there's one thing you can do with a third-party debt collector. It's called verification. You're entitled to send them, when they send you a notice for, you owe us money. We've been hired by NextCard. We've been hired by Bank of America. We've been hired by MBNA. You owe us money. Since when did you sign a contract with, let's see, who did I deal with? Oh, I love the law firm. I got a call from a law firm. I got a letter from a law firm out of New York. And I wrote him back and I said, verify that I owe you money. Otherwise, I'm coming after your butt. This is a fun fight. So they sent, you know what what they sent back to me, this was on one of my cards. They sent back to me 7 years worth of copies of my monthly statement. And I laughed. I did just that. I said, these guys got to be kidding. I sent it back. I said, it's a shame. You might want to go get good counsel that I have to teach you your job. Send me verification. What'd they do? They sent it back. 7 years. Same thing. What did I do next? Nothing. I let them call me. They called me. I have a guy that works in my office. This was the first day on the job. 8:30 in the morning, these people called my office. And I chewed them a new rear end like it was nobody's business. I woke up my entire house. My head was as red as your dress. I was fuming. And then I sent a letter and memorialized what took place. And then I sent him a bill. I charged him $7,500 for wasting my time. Because under 1692, I can. Because I'm a professional. I had to waste my professional time. Seek professional help with this stuff, though. You can do it on your own, but get good counsel. They're gone. They haven't bothered me. I'm about ready to sue them. They haven't paid me yet. I sent in another bill to another third-party debt collector, and they didn't respond. So after it's been about 45 days, I sent them another bill. These idiots actually called me and said, "What's this bill for? We don't even have you as an account." And I said, "Oh, well, let me tell you what happened. You sent me a letter. I asked you for verification. Then you called me. Under strict orders, by law, if you tell a third-party debt collector not to call you, not to email you, not to fax you, they have to abide by it, but they can't write you." They called me after I told them not to, and after I asked them for verification, which they never provided. So I wrote them a letter and a bill, and I charged them $2,500. And then they called me back and they says, "Why did you send us this bill?" And I explained to them, "You violated Title 15. You better pay me. Otherwise, I will seek all appropriate remedies under law. And when they don't pay me, I will be able to file suit." It's that simple. This is not an easy fight. Anything that you do that's against the norm is not an easy fight. We got an attorney in here. He'll tell you. International law is probably some of the toughest stuff. I don't owe a third-party debt collector a dime. Never can.
That's basically your letter that you sent.
Yeah, oh yeah. I quote statute. I quote Title 15. They've got to verify. Verification, when you go, it's not defined in Title 15. So go to a law dictionary. I happen to go to Black's Law 6th edition. I'd recommend using Black's Law 4th edition. If you can get it, use that. The banks are very good at it, because what you think is a loan is a deposit. They've changed the definition on you. What was the one just the other day that changed? Swipe. That's what it was. It was swipe. Just Thursday when we got here. Oh, let me swipe your credit card. What did it mean to swipe something 50 years ago? You stole it. But now they swipe it. Well, that's what I said. I said, boy, there's a definition that changed. And I went, you know what? No, it hasn't. Because they just took your money. They took your money out of your account when they swiped it. And they really did, because they stole it from you, and you didn't, because you didn't know it was your money. You thought you borrowed it. So did it really change? English language is amazing. So in any event, I'll be here to answer some questions. That's my education and background. That's what I can tell you about what's happening to you every day.